Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin.
The acceptance letters arrived on the same Tuesday afternoon in March, both stamped with official university seals that promised futures neither sister had dared to imagine just months before. Marley Quinn held hers between steady fingers, reading the words for the third time. Congratulations on your acceptance to Everidge University's prestigious neuroscience program. She set the letter on the kitchen counter next to Kaya's acceptance to Holliston College, watching her younger sister bounce around the living room with her mother's arms wrapped around her shoulders. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Margot Quinn cooed, stroking Kaya's dark hair. "Liberal arts at Holliston, you'll love it there." Ellis Quinn looked up from his newspaper, adjusting his reading glasses. "Close to home, too. That's smart." Marley cleared her throat. "Dad, did you see mine?" Her father glanced at the Everidge letter without picking it up. "California's expensive. It's a full academic program. Top 10 in the country for neuroscience." Marley kept her voice level, though her pulse quickened. "The research opportunities alone." "Research doesn't pay the bills," Ellis said, folding his newspaper with sharp creases. "You've always had your head in the clouds, Marley. College is about getting a degree and finding steady work." Kaya looked between her parents and her sister, chewing her bottom lip. "Marley's really smart, though." "Maybe. Smart doesn't mean practical," Margot interrupted, still holding Kaya close. "Your sister asks for too much. You've always been more reasonable." The words hit Marley like ice water. She watched her mother's fingers smooth Kaya's hair, the same gesture Margot had never offered her. Not once. "Dinner's ready," Ellis announced, standing up. "We need to talk about college plans, anyway." They gathered around the small dining table, the same scratched oak surface where they'd eaten thousands of meals in careful silence. Ellis carved the pot roast, while Margot served green beans from a can. Kaya sat across from Marley, fidgeting with her napkin. "So," Ellis began, cutting his meat into precise squares, "we've been talking about tuition." Marley straightened in her chair. "I can apply for financial aid. Work-study programs. We'll pay for Kaya's education," Ellis said without looking up from his plate. "Holliston's reasonable. For years, she'll have her degree." The silence stretched until Marley found her voice. "And me?" Margot set down her fork. "Kaya doesn't ask for attention. She deserves this shot." She finally met Marley's eyes across the table. "You? You've always been difficult." "Difficult how?" Marley's hands remained steady on her silverware, though her knuckles had gone white. "The cheating incident junior year," Ellis said. "Getting suspended for arguing with teachers. You never learned to keep your head down." "I didn't cheat. The teacher was wrong about the plagiarism." "You didn't fight it hard enough," Margot snapped. "Good students don't get accused in the first place." Marley stared at her parents, understanding settling over her like cold fog. They believed what they wanted to believe. They had always believed what was convenient. "Kaya mirrors what we want in a daughter," Ellis continued. "Respectful, grateful. She won't drop out after 2 semesters because college is too hard." "I've never said college was too hard." "You don't have to say it," Margot replied. "We know you." Kaya finally spoke, her voice small. "Maybe we could work something out? Like I could take a gap year." "No." Ellis pointed his fork at her. "You're going to Holliston. This family invests in sure things." Marley looked around the table at her father's satisfied expression, her mother's cold smile, her sister's guilty eyes. She set her napkin beside her untouched plate and stood up. "Where are you going?" Margot demanded. "To pack," Marley said. She walked to her bedroom and closed the door. The room felt smaller than it had that morning, with its single bed and desk she'd built from scavenged wood. She pulled her suitcase from under the bed and began folding clothes with mechanical precision. 20 minutes later, Kaya knocked softly. Marley, can I come in? Doors open. Kaya stepped inside, closing it behind her. They didn't mean it like that. They're just worried about money. Marley continued packing. They meant exactly like that. You're really leaving? California's expensive, remember? Marley zipped her suitcase shut. I'll figure it out. But how will you pay for? I'll work. Student loans. Whatever it takes. Marley met her sister's eyes. I don't need them. Kaya's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I tried to say something, but... You tried. Marley shouldered her backpack. That's more than they did. She walked past Kaya, through the living room where her parents sat watching television as if nothing had happened. Neither looked up when she opened the front door. Marley. Ellis called just as she reached the threshold. She turned back. Don't come crawling back when it gets hard. Marley smiled for the first time all day. I won't. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the evening air. 3 months later, Marley stood in the fluorescent-lit basement of a rental house 6 blocks from Everidge University, staring at the narrow bed and desk that would serve as her world for the next 4 years. The room smelled like mildew and old carpet, but the rent was $400 a month, and the landlord didn't ask questions about cosigners. Her phone buzzed with a text from Kaya. First day at Holliston. Mom made me a care package. Miss you. Marley deleted the message without responding and checked her schedule. Research lab at 8, classes until 3. Waitressing shift at Murphy's Tavern from 5 to midnight. Rinse and repeat Monday through Friday. Weekends meant tutoring high school kids online for $20 an hour. She had exactly $12 in her checking account and a refrigerator stocked with ramen noodles and energy drinks. The research lab occupied the 3rd floor of the neuroscience building, a sterile maze of equipment that hummed and blinked like sleeping robots. Dr. Nadia Kroll, the supervising professor, had hired Marley based on a single conversation about neural pathway mapping. You're early, Dr. Kroll said when Marley arrived at 7:30. The professor was younger than Marley had expected, maybe 40, with steel-gray hair pulled into a messy bun and coffee stains on her lab coat. I wanted to review the protocols again. Smart. Half these undergrads think research means pressing buttons and collecting paychecks. Dr. Kroll handed her a clipboard. You'll be cataloging brain skin data today. Tedious work, but important. Marley spent the morning entering numbers into spreadsheets, cross-referencing scan results with patient histories. The work required precision and focus, exactly what she needed to keep her mind off the empty space where her family used to be at AT lunch. She sat alone in the cafeteria with a granola bar and water, reviewing notes for her afternoon neurochemistry class. Other students clustered around tables, laughing about weekend plans and complaining about professors. Marley kept her head down and her earbuds in. Mind if I sit? She looked up to find a guy about her age, standing beside her table, holding a lunch tray. He was tall and lean, with dark hair and eyes that seemed older than his face. A small scar cut through his left eyebrow. I'm not really looking for company. I get it. He sat down anyway. I'm Dante Rivas. Computer science. Marley Quinn. Neuroscience. Like the comic book character. Like the name my parents gave me. She closed her textbook. What do you want? Dante bit into his sandwich, considering. You're in Kroll's lab, right? I see you there mornings. Are you stalking me? I work IT for the department. Fix computers, maintain databases. He gestured toward her with his sandwich. You always look like you're solving the world's problems at 7 a.m. Problems are easier than people. Agreed. Dante's smile was crooked. That's why I stick to code. Computers do what you tell them. Marley studied his face, noting the tension around his eyes. You're older than most students. Military first. Did my time, came back to finish school. He didn't elaborate, and Marley didn't push. Everyone had their damage. Why are you talking to me? Because you look like someone who understands that some fights are worth having alone. The words hit deeper than Marley expected. She packed her books into her backpack and stood up. I have class. See you tomorrow, Marley Quinn. She walked away without answering, but she was already looking forward to tomorrow. Murphy's Tavern squatted on the corner of 5th and Grant like a brick toad, all dark wood and neon beer signs. The owner, Murphy himself, was a 60-year-old ex-Marine who hired college kids because they worked cheap and showed up sober. Table 6 wants another pitcher, Murphy called from behind the bar. And someone needs to clean up the puke in the men's room. Marley grabbed the pitcher and mop, calculating tips in her head. Good night meant $60. Bad night meant $40. She needed $75 just to cover food for the week. The dinner rush brought families and couples, people who tipped reasonably and didn't grab at the waitresses. After 9, the crowd shifted to college students and regulars who nursed drinks and argued about sports. These were Marley's bread and butter, drunk enough to tip well, not drunk enough to cause problems. To midnight, she counted her tips in the employee break room. $68. Close enough. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Dante. Got your number from the lab directory. Want to split and Uber back to campus. She looked through the small window at the empty street, calculating bus fare versus safety. The last bus ran at 12:30, but the stop was 6 blocks away through neighborhoods that made her check her keys like brass knuckles. Were you? She texted back, Murphy's parking lot. Figured you worked here. Marley found him leaning against a beat-up Honda Civic, reading something on his phone. He looked up when she approached. Stalking me again. I live 3 streets over. Heard you tell someone you worked at Murphy's. He opened the passenger door. It's not safe walking alone at night. I can take care of myself. I'm sure you can, but why make it harder than it needs to be? Marley got in the car. The interior smelled like coffee and motor oil. Dante drove carefully, hands at 10 and 2, checking mirrors every few seconds. You have PTSD, she said as he glanced at her. That obvious. Hypervigilance. You're scanning for threats constantly. She studied his profile. Afghanistan. Iraq. 2 tours. He turned onto campus. You studying psychology too? I read people the way you read code. Survival skill. Dante parked outside her rental house. The porch light was burned out, leaving deep shadows across the front steps. Thanks for the ride. Marley. He waited until she looked at him. Whatever you're running from or toward, you don't have to do it completely alone. She got out without answering, but she watched his taillights disappear before going inside. 2 months into her first semester. Marley had established a routine that functioned like clockwork. For hours of sleep, research lab, classes, Murphy's repeat. Her grades were perfect. Her bank account hovered just above 0. Her phone stayed silent except for texts from Kaya that she never answered. She was calibrating equipment in Dr. Kroll's lab when the professor approached with a research paper, excitement bright in her eyes. Read this, Dr. Kroll said, setting the journal on Marley's workstation. Tell me what you think. The paper outlined new methods for mapping neural pathways in real time, using magnetic resonance imaging combined with electrical stimulation. Marley read it twice, making notes in the margins. The methodology is sound, but they're missing connections in the temporal lobe, she said finally. If you adjust the stimulation frequency and target these areas. She sketched a diagram on scratch paper. You could map emotional responses alongside cognitive processes. Dr. Kroll stared at the sketch. That's exactly what I've been trying to figure out for 6 months. The equipment modifications would be expensive. The grant money's already approved. I've been waiting for someone smart enough to help implement it. Dr. Kroll sat down beside her. How would you feel about becoming a research assistant? Real work, not just data entry. Marley set down her pen. What does that mean? 20 hours a week, $15 an hour. Co-author credit on any papers we publish. Dr. Kroll's smile was sharp. You'd be the youngest research assistant in the department. The math was simple. $300 a week meant she could quit Murphy's, focus on school, maybe even afford food that didn't come in plastic packages. But more than that, research credit meant graduate school applications, recommendations, a future built on her own work. When do I start? Right now. We have brain scans to analyze. That night, Marley walked home with her first real paycheck in her pocket and a stack of research papers under her arm. The autumn air bit at her cheeks, but she felt warm for the first time since leaving Oregon. Her phone rang as she reached her front door. Aunt Lydia's name flashed on the screen. Marley, honey, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Aunt Lydia was her father's sister, a nurse who lived in Portland and sent birthday cards with $20 bills tucked inside. She was the only family member who had ever asked Marley about her plans without suggesting she lower her expectations. I've been busy with school. I heard about the college situation. Lydia's voice carried disapproval. Your parents made a mistake. It's fine. I'm managing. That's not why I'm calling. Lydia paused. Are you somewhere private? Marley unlocked her bedroom door and sat on her narrow bed. What's going on? I have something to tell you about your adoption. The words hit Marley like a punch to the sternum. My what? You don't know. Lydia's voice went soft. Oh, honey, I thought after all these years, I assumed they'd told you. Marley gripped the phone tighter. Told me what? Ellis and Margot adopted you when you were 6 months old. I was there when they brought you home. Lydia's breathing was audible across the connection. You were such a beautiful baby, so alert and curious. The room tilted. Marley pressed her free hand against the wall to steady herself. That's impossible. I have the paperwork. I kept copies because I knew this day might come. Lydia's voice strengthened. They tried for years to have children. Margot had 3 miscarriages before they decided on adoption. Then, 2 years after you came to them, she got pregnant with Kaya. They never said anything. They wanted to pretend you were biologically theirs. Margot was obsessed with the idea of a normal family. Lydia sighed, but Ellis always resented that you weren't his blood. And Margot, she loved the baby she carried more than the one she chose. Marley stared at her reflection in the dark window, seeing her features with new eyes. The angular jaw that matched neither parent. The green eyes in a family of brown. The height that towered over everyone at family gatherings. Why are you telling me this now? Because I heard what they did with college. How they chose Kaya over you. Lydia's voice hardened. You deserve to know the truth. You were never their backup plan, honey. You were their first miracle. They just forgot how to see it. After Lydia hung up, Marley sat in the dark for 2 hours, processing 22 years of small cruelties through the lens of blood and choice. Every time her parents had favored Kaya, every comment about her being difficult or different, every comparison that left her feeling like a stranger in her own home. Now she understood. She had been a stranger. She had always been the outsider they tolerated rather than the daughter they celebrated. But the understanding brought clarity instead of pain. The rejection wasn't personal, it was biological, primitive. Her parents were exactly who she had always known them to be. Small people who measured love in DNA and worthiness in obedience. She pulled out her laptop and began researching. Adoption records, birth certificates, the legal trail that would prove what Lydia had told her. Be wise sunrise, she had a plan. Not revenge, something smarter. Something that would prove blood meant nothing compared to what you built with your own hands. She was going to succeed so completely, so publicly, that everyone would see the difference between choosing a child and raising one. Right. 2 years later, Marley stood in Dr. Kroll's lab at 6 in the morning, reviewing the final data from their latest research project. The numbers on her screen represented 18 months of work brain scans from 200 volunteers, neural pathway mappings that revealed new connections between emotion and memory. The correlation coefficients are stronger than we hypothesized, she told Dr. Kroll, who was reviewing the same data on her own computer. The temporal lobe connections show a 93% consistency rate. This is publication-worthy, Dr. Kroll said, leaning back in her chair. More than worthy. This could change how we understand trauma processing. Marley saved the file and closed her laptop. What's our next step? I submit to the Journal of Neuroscience tomorrow, with you as second author. Dr. Kroll smiled. 24 years old and already publishing original research. Your parents must be proud. The comment hit like a small knife between her ribs. Marley's parents had no idea about her research, her publications, or anything else about her life. Their silence had been mutual and complete. They don't really follow my academic work, Marley said. Their loss. Dr. Kroll closed her laptop. Speaking of recognition, the University Honors Committee wants to meet with you next week. About what? Graduation, keynote speaker. They're considering you for the position. Dr. Kroll's eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Youngest student in Everidge history to be considered. Marley felt her pulse quicken. The keynote address was delivered to nearly 500 graduates and their families, broadcast online, covered by local media, a platform that reached far beyond the university. What would I need to do? Meet with the committee. Present a sample speech. Convince them you can represent what Everidge produces. Dr. Kroll gathered her papers. Though between you and me, you've already convinced them. This is a formality. That afternoon, Marley sat in Dante's apartment, a one-bedroom space above a coffee shop that he'd furnished with salvaged furniture and second-hand electronics. He was debugging code on 3 different monitors while she reviewed her research notes. You're going to do the speech, he said without looking away from his screens. I haven't decided yet. Yes, you have. You decided the moment she told you. Dante typed a few commands, then turned to face her. What are you really thinking about? Marley set down her papers. My parents will find out. The whole town will know. Good. They'll think I'm doing it to hurt them. Dante raised an eyebrow. Aren't you? The honest answer was complicated. Marley had built her life around proving her worth, not around punishing her family. But the idea of her parents watching her succeed publicly undeniably filled her with satisfaction that felt dangerous. I want them to see what they lost, she admitted. Then show them. Dante saved his work and closed his monitors. But do it right. Don't make it about them. Make it about you. What's the difference? Revenge is about the past. Success is about the future. He stood up and walked to his kitchen. You want coffee? It's 4 in the afternoon. So, Marley followed him to the small kitchen, watching him measure coffee grounds with the same precision he applied to everything else. Why do you care what I do? Dante looked at her over the coffee maker. Because you remind me of who I was before I learned to trust people again. I trust people. You trust people to disappoint you. That's different. He started the coffee brewing. But you trust me enough to be here. And you trust Dr. Kroll enough to do real work with her. That's not the same as family. Maybe family isn't about blood. Maybe it's about who shows up when things get hard. The words settled between them like a question Marley wasn't ready to answer. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Marley, this is Kaya. I know you probably won't respond, but I needed to tell you I saw the article about your research online. I'm proud of you. I miss you. Marley showed the message to Dante. She's been texting for 2 years. I never answer. Why not? Because she chose them over me. At dinner that night, she could have stood up for me. She could have refused their money until they included me. Marley deleted the message. She chose comfort over courage. People aren't perfect. Some mistakes don't get forgiven. Dante poured coffee into 2 mugs and handed her one. What if she tries to contact you after your speech? Marley sipped the coffee, thinking. Then she'll find out how much silence costs. 3 weeks later, Marley sat in the University Honors Committee meeting, facing 5 professors who would decide whether she represented the future of American education. She wore her only good dress navy blue, bought secondhand, and had practiced her sample speech until every word felt like muscle memory. Ms. Quinn, the committee chair, began, "Your academic record is exemplary. Your research contributions are remarkable for an undergraduate, but we're curious about your background. What specifically? You've worked throughout college, no family support, yet you've maintained a perfect GPA while contributing to groundbreaking research." The chair leaned forward. "How do you explain that level of achievement under such circumstances?" Marley had prepared for this question. "I learned early that support comes from work, not wishful thinking. When you can't rely on external resources, you develop internal ones." "And what message would you want to share with graduating students?" "That your worth isn't determined by where you start. It's determined by how you respond when people tell you you're not enough." Marley met each committee member's eyes. "Some of us build our futures from scratch. We're not less capable, we're more motivated." The committee members exchanged glances. The chair smiled. "Ms. Quinn, we'd be honored to have you deliver this year's keynote address." Walking across campus afterward, Marley felt the weight of the moment settling over her. In 6 weeks, she would stand on a stage and speak to hundreds of people about resilience and self-determination. Among them might be her family. She pulled out her phone and called Dante. "I got it. Congratulations. When's the speech?" "May 15th, graduation day." Marley paused outside the library. "I need help with something." "Name it." "I want to create a website, a timeline of my college experience, research projects, publications, awards, everything I've accomplished here." Dante was quiet for a moment. "You want to document your success." "I want to make it impossible to ignore." "I can build that. Professional looking, clean design." "When do you need it?" 2 weeks. "I want it live before graduation announcements go out." "Consider it done." "What else?" Marley took a breath. "I need to find my adoption records. Public documents, legal proof." "That's trickier. Adoption records are usually sealed. Not all of them. Court filings, newspaper announcements, public notices." Marley started walking again. "There has to be a paper trail." "Why do you want them?" "Because I want everyone to know the truth. My parents raised someone else's child and treated her like she was disposable." The words came out harder than she intended. "I want that truth to be public." "Marley." Dante's voice carried a warning. "Be careful. Once you put something like that out there, you can't take it back." "I don't want to take it back." "What about Kaya? This will hurt her too." Marley thought about her sister's texts. Always apologetic, always hopeful. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with mine. The website went live on a Thursday morning in April. Dante had designed it with elegant simplicity, a professional photo of Marley in the lab, followed by a chronological timeline of her achievements, research publications, academic awards, conference presentations, a portfolio that demonstrated 4 years of relentless work, AT the bottom, a single line, built without support, achieved through determination. Marley shared the link with Dr. Kroll, who forwarded it to colleagues in the field. Within hours, it was circulating through academic networks, shared by professors who used it as an example of undergraduate excellence on Friday. Marley received an email from the Cedar Springs Daily Herald, the small newspaper that covered her hometown at a mess. Quinn, I'm writing a follow-up article about local students' college achievements. Your website has been brought to my attention. Would you be willing to comment on your experience at Everidge? Marley stared at the email for 10 minutes before responding, I'd be happy to discuss my work. You should know that my experience has been shaped by overcoming significant family challenges. I'm willing to be completely honest about that. The interview happened over the phone the following Monday. The reporter, Sarah Chen, was thorough and sympathetic. Your research has been impressive. How did you manage such a heavy workload? I worked 3 jobs to pay for school. Research assistant, waitress, online tutor. When your education depends on your own effort, you find ways to make it work. What about family support? Marley had rehearsed this answer. My parents chose to fund my sister's education, but not mine. They believed I would fail. I decided to prove them wrong. That must have been difficult. It was clarifying. It showed me who I really was without their expectations or limitations. Is there anything else you'd like people to know? Marley took a breath. I recently discovered that I was adopted as an infant. My parents never told me. It explains why they always treated me differently, but it doesn't excuse how they treated me. The silence on the line stretched for several seconds. That's quite a revelation. Are you comfortable having that included in the article? I'm comfortable with the truth. The article published the following Wednesday with the headline, Local Student Overcomes Family Rejection to Excel at University, Research. It included quotes from Dr. Kroll about Marley's contributions to neuroscience and details about her upcoming graduation speech to the end. It mentioned her recent discovery of her adoption and her parents' decision to fund only their biological daughter's education. By Thursday, the article was shared on social media throughout Cedar Springs. Local Facebook groups buzzed with comments about the Quinn family dynamics. Some people remembered Marley as the quiet, serious girl who always had her nose in a book. Others recalled Ellis and Margot's obvious preference for their younger daughter. Marley's phone started ringing that afternoon. Unknown numbers, voicemails from neighbors and classmates she hadn't spoken to in years. She let them all go to voicemail. The only call she answered was from Aunt Lydia. I saw the article, honey. Are you okay? I'm fine. Your father called me. He's upset. I'm sure he is. Marley. Lydia's voice was gentle. I understand why you did this, but there's going to be fallout. I know. Are you prepared for that? Marley looked out her bedroom window at the campus where she'd built her life from nothing. I've been preparing for this for 4 years. The text from Kaya arrived on Sunday night, 2 weeks before graduation. Marley was reviewing her keynote speech when her phone buzzed that I'm sorry. I didn't know everything. For the first time in 2 years, Marley stared at her sister's message without immediately deleting it. She set the phone aside and returned to her speech, but the words on the page seemed to blur together. 20 minutes later, another text. I know you won't respond, but I needed you to know that I tried to convince them. After you left, I asked them to reconsider. Marley picked up the phone. When the response came immediately, every holiday. Every time your name came up, I told them they were wrong. But you took their money anyway that I was 18. I didn't know how to give it back. Marley set the phone down again, but she didn't delete the conversation that on Monday morning. Dante appeared at her apartment with coffee and news. I found something, he said, settling onto her couch with his laptop. Remember you asked me to look into your parents' finances? What did you find? Public records. Foreclosure notices. Your dad lost his job at the school district 8 months ago. Dante pulled up documents on his screen. There are 3 payments behind on the house. Marley studied the paperwork. How did you get this? County clerk's office posts everything online. Foreclosure proceedings are public record. He scrolled through bank notices and legal documents. It gets worse. They took out credit cards in Kaya's name. Student credit cards, supposedly for college expenses. How much? $15,000. All maxed out. The information settled over Marley like puzzle pieces clicking into place. Her parents' silence after the newspaper article. Kaya's recent texts. The desperation that must be building in the house she'd once called home. They're going to lose everything, she said. Looks like it. Unless they get help or Kaya finds a way to pay off the debt they stuck her with. Dante closed his laptop. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they're about to find out what it feels like to have nowhere to turn. You could help them. Marley looked at him sharply. Why would I do that? Because you're not them. Because you're better than the people who raised you. Better doesn't mean stupid. Marley stood up and walked to her window. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. What about Kaya? What about her? She's going to get crushed in this. Bad credit. Debt she didn't create. Parents who used her name to stay afloat. Dante leaned forward. She was 18 when you left. Barely an adult. Old enough to know right from wrong. Was she? Dante's voice was quiet. You had 4 years to figure out who you are without them. She's been trapped in that house, trying to keep them happy, probably feeling guilty about every dollar they spent on her. Marley turned away from the window. Are you defending them? I'm defending her. There's a difference. Before Marley could respond, her phone buzzed with another text from Kaya. Can we talk? Please? I know I don't deserve it, but I need to explain some things. Marley showed the message to Dante. She wants to talk. Maybe you should listen. Why? Because forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you not carrying their damage forever. I'm not forgiving anyone. Then at least let her tell you what really happened. You might learn something that changes how you see this. Marley stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed, I'll be at campus coffee shop tomorrow at 2. You have 30 minutes. The response came immediately. Thank you. On Tuesday afternoon, Marley sat in the campus coffee shop, checking her watch every few minutes. She'd arrived early, chosen a table in the back corner, and ordered black coffee. She didn't have tea exactly 2 o'clock. Kaya walked through the door. Marley's sister looked older than her 22 years. Thinner. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her clothes hung loose on her frame. She spotted Marley immediately and approached the table with hesitant steps. Thank you for agreeing to see me, Kaya said, sitting down across from her. You have 30 minutes. Kaya nodded and folded her hands on the table. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. I don't think about you. The words hit like a slap. Kaya flinched, but kept talking. I need you to know what it's been like. After you left. I don't care what it's been like. Please. Kaya's voice cracked. Just listen. Then I'll leave you alone forever if that's what you want. Marley checked her watch. 29 minutes. They fell apart after you left. Dad started drinking more. Mom became obsessed with proving they'd made the right choice. Kaya spoke quickly, as if afraid Marley would leave. Every time I got a good grade, she'd say, see, we invested in the right daughter. Every time I struggled, she'd panic and call it a waste of money. That's not my problem. Dad lost his job because he showed up drunk. 3 times. They tried to hide it from me, but I found the termination letter. Kaya's hands shook slightly. That's when the credit cards started. They said it was for my textbooks and lab fees. I didn't know they were using them for mortgage payments and groceries. Marley felt a familiar coldness settle in her chest. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand I never wanted their money if it meant you couldn't have yours. I tried to get them to change their minds, but they said you'd made your choice. Kaya wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was scared to push too hard because they were already so angry all the time. So you chose safety over family. I chose survival, just like you did. Kaya leaned forward. The difference is you were strong enough to leave. I wasn't. Marley studied her sister's face, noting the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled slightly. What do you want from me? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of you. What you've accomplished, the research, the graduation speech, it's incredible. Kaya's voice strengthened. I wanted you to know that at least one person in her family recognizes how amazing you are. Former family. Right. Former family. Kaya stood up. I hope your speech goes well. I hope you get everything you've worked for. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. They're planning to come to your graduation. Marley's pulse quickened. What? They saw the announcement online. About the keynote speech. They think. Kaya paused. They think this means you've forgiven them, that you're ready to be a family again. The words hit Marley like a physical blow. Are you serious? Dad thinks you're trying to impress them, that this is your way of proving you were worth their investment after all. Kaya's expression was bitter. They don't understand that you succeeded because of their rejection, not in spite of it. Marley felt something cold and sharp settle in her stomach. They think I want them back. They think you need them back. They're planning to approach you after the ceremony, to reconcile. Kaya met her eyes. I thought you should be prepared. Why are you warning me? Because you deserve better than being ambushed by people who still don't understand what they did wrong. Kaya left without another word, leaving Marley alone with her coffee and a new understanding of what graduation day would bring. That evening, she called Dante. They're coming to the ceremony. Your parents. They think this is about them. They think I'm trying to win them back. Marley paced her small bedroom. They're planning some kind of reconciliation. What are you going to do? Marley stopped pacing and looked at herself in the mirror. The face looking back was stronger than the one that had left Cedar Springs 4 years ago. Harder, more certain. I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve, which is the truth, in front of 500 people, on camera, with no way to interrupt or control the narrative. Marley, they want reconciliation. They'll get revelation instead. She hung up and returned to her speech, making notes in the margins, adding lines that would ensure everyone understood exactly who had supported her journey and who had tried to stop it. The speech was no longer just about her success. It was about the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose. About the people who bet against you and the people who invest in your potential. It was about making sure that when her parents saw what she'd accomplished, they would understand exactly what they had lost. Graduation morning arrived gray and humid, with thick clouds that threatened rain but never delivered. Marley stood in front of her bedroom mirror, adjusting the cap and gown that marked the end of 4 years she had built entirely herself. The navy blue fabric felt heavier than expected, weighted with significance and the eyes that would soon be watching her. In 3 hours, she would stand at a podium and deliver words that would reshape how everyone understood her story. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Kroll. Ready to make history, Marley typed back. Born ready to AT the campus center, graduates clustered in nervous groups while families found seats in the outdoor amphitheater. Marley checked in with the ceremony coordinator, received her speaking order, and found a quiet corner to review her notes one final time. There you are. She looked up to find Dante approaching, wearing a button-down shirt and tie that made him look uncomfortably formal. You clean up nice, she said. Figured I should look respectable for your big moment. He sat beside her on the stone bench. How are you feeling? Focused. That's not the same as good. Marley folded her speech and slipped it into her gown pocket. I saw them arrive 20 minutes ago. Your parents. And Kaya, They're sitting in the third row, center section. She had spotted them immediately, Ellis in a suit that was too big, Margot in a dress that was too bright, Kaya trailing behind them like an unwilling shadow. How do you know where they're sitting? I've been watching. They picked seats where I'll be able to see them during the speech. Marley's smile was sharp. They want eye contact. They want acknowledgement. Are you going to give it to them? Oh, I'm going to give them something. The ceremony began with the university president's welcome, followed by recognition of distinguished graduates. Marley sat in the front row with other honors students, her heart rate steady despite the magnitude of what was coming. When her name was called, she walked to the podium with measured steps. The microphone adjusted easily to her height. The crowd of families and faculty stretched before her like a vast jury waiting for verdict. She found her parents in the third row without searching. Ellis sat with his arms crossed, already smiling with satisfaction. Margot dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, playing the role of proud mother. Between them, Kaya stared at her hands. "Good morning," Marley began, her voice carrying clearly through the amplification system. "I'm honored to speak to you today about resilience, determination, and the difference between the family that raises you and the family that believes in you." Scattered applause rippled through the audience. Ellis's smile widened. 4 years ago, I arrived at Everidge University with a suitcase, $200, and no support system. I worked 3 jobs to pay for my education while maintaining a perfect grade point average and contributing to groundbreaking neuroscience research. She paused, letting the weight of those accomplishments settle over the crowd. Many of you had different experiences. You had families who invested in your education, who celebrated your achievements, who provided the foundation you needed to focus on learning rather than survival. You are fortunate. Not all of us received that gift. Marley saw Margot shift in her seat, the tissue forgotten in her hands. Some students build their futures despite their families rather than because of them. Some of us learn early that worth is not inherited but earned. That love is not guaranteed but chosen. The amphitheater had grown completely quiet. Even the late-arriving families had stopped shuffling to listen. "I want to talk about invisible orphans," Marley continued, her voice strengthening. "Children raised in homes where they are tolerated rather than treasured, where their potential is seen as a threat rather than a promise, where their dreams are dismissed as unrealistic because supporting them would require sacrifice from people unwilling to give it." Ellis's smile had disappeared. He was staring at her with growing comprehension and alarm. "For years ago, my parents made a choice. They decided to fund my sister's education, but not mine. They looked at 2 daughters and determined that one was worth investing in while the other was not. They chose the child they had carried over the child they had chosen." Gasps echoed through parts of the audience. Cell phones appeared as people began recording. "I recently discovered that I was adopted as an infant. My parents never told me this truth, but it explains a lifetime of being treated as less worthy than their biological child. It explains why my achievements were always questioned while my sisters were celebrated. It explains why, when college acceptances arrived, they saw fit to invest in one future, but not the other." Margot was crying now, but not from pride. Ellis had stood up and was trying to push past other family members in their row. "But here is what they failed to understand," Marley said, her voice carrying clearly over the murmurs and movement in the crowd. "Rejection from people who cannot see your worth does not diminish that worth. It reveals their limitations, not yours." She found Kaya in the third row. Her sister was watching her with an expression of pain and something that might have been pride. "I built my education on my own determination. I funded it with my own work. I earned every grade, every recognition, every opportunity through effort they said I was incapable of sustaining. I was mentored by professors who saw potential where my parents saw problems. I was supported by friends who offered help where my family offered obstacles." The applause began in scattered pockets, and built to a sustained wave. Students stood first, then faculty, then families who understood what they were witnessing. I stand before you today not as a product of family investment, but as proof that your worth is not determined by who chooses to believe in you. Your value is not diminished by people who cannot see it. Your future is not limited by people who refuse to support it. Ellis had reached the aisle and was walking toward the exit, his face flushed with anger and humiliation. Margot followed him, stumbling slightly in her too high heels. Kaya remained in her seat, still watching. To my fellow graduates who built your success from nothing, Marley continued, you are not alone. Your achievements are more meaningful because you earned them without assistance. You are stronger because you learned to depend on yourselves. You are better prepared for the future because you already know how to create one from nothing. The standing ovation was thunderous now. Students shouted approval. Faculty members applauded with genuine enthusiasm. In the media section, reporters typed frantically on their phones. And to those who tried to limit us, Marley said, looking directly at the now empty seats where her parents had been sitting, thank you. Your rejection taught us that we needed no one's permission to succeed. Your doubt motivated us to prove you wrong. Your limitations became our liberation. She stepped back from the podium to sustained applause that lasted nearly 5 minutes. As she returned to her seat, she caught Kaya's eye one final time. Her sister was crying, but she was also clapping. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of names and handshakes. When it ended, Marley was surrounded by faculty, students, and reporters who wanted to know more about her story. Dr. Kroll appeared at her elbow with protective instincts. That was extraordinary, she said, and probably the most honest graduation speech in university history. Through the crowd, Marley saw Kaya approaching slowly, as if afraid of being turned away. I should go, Dr. Kroll said, recognizing the family resemblance. Kaya stopped a few feet away, clutching her purse like a shield. They left after your speech. I noticed. They were furious. Dad kept saying you'd humiliated the family. Kaya's voice was quiet but steady. He doesn't understand that you weren't talking about him. You were talking about yourself. I was talking about the truth. I know. Kaya took a step closer. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it clearly. What they did to you, what they've been doing our whole lives. Marley studied her sister's face, noting the tear tracks and the determined set of her jaw. What will you do now? I don't know. The debt they put in my name. I can't pay it. My credits ruined before I even graduated. Kaya wiped her eyes. Maybe I deserved this, for not standing up for you when it mattered. Maybe you did. The words hung between them without softness or forgiveness. Kaya nodded as if she had expected nothing different. I hope you get everything you want, Kaya said. You earned it. She turned and walked away, leaving Marley alone with her triumph and the lingering taste of justice served cold. BY Monday morning. Marley's graduation speech had been viewed over 50,000 times on YouTube. The university had posted the full video with the title, Student Speaks Truth About Family Rejection and Self-Determination. Comments poured in from viewers who shared similar stories of family disappointment and personal triumph. Local news stations picked up the story. The Cedar Springs Daily Herald published a follow-up article titled, Quinn Family Speech Reveals Adoption Secret and College Funding Controversy. Social media buzzed with debates about family loyalty, parental obligations, and the courage to speak publicly about private pain. Marley's phone rang constantly with interview requests from podcasters, bloggers, and journalists who wanted to explore the broader themes of her story. She declined most of them, accepting only interviews with education-focused publications that framed her experience as inspiration for other students facing similar challenges. On Tuesday, she received an email from TED Talks expressing interest in having her develop her speech into a longer presentation. 3 STEM organizations reached out about featuring her story in their mentorship programs. A literary agent asked if she had considered writing a book. The tension felt surreal, but not unwelcome. For 4 years, Marley had worked in relative obscurity, building achievements that only her immediate academic circle recognized. Now her story was reaching people who needed to hear that success was possible without traditional support systems. The most meaningful responses came from students. Dozens of emails from young people who had felt like outsiders in their own families, who had been told their dreams were unrealistic, who had learned to fund their own futures because no one else would invest in them. "Your speech made me feel less alone," one email read. "I thought I was the only person whose parents didn't believe in me. I'm working 3 jobs to pay for nursing school," wrote another. "Your story reminds me why it's worth it." On Wednesday, Dante appeared at her apartment with coffee and a laptop full of news coverage. "You've officially gone viral," he said, showing her view counts and share statistics. The video has been picked up by major education websites and social justice blogs. "Any word from my family?" Nothing direct. But Kaya's Facebook has been quiet since graduation. Your parents deactivated their accounts entirely. Marley scrolled through comments on various articles, noting the mix of support and criticism. Some people accused her of airing private family business for attention. Others praised her courage in speaking difficult truths. "Do you regret it?" Dante asked. "Regret what?" "Making it public, burning those bridges completely." Marley considered the question. "You can't burn a bridge that was never built. They made their choice 4 years ago. I just made sure everyone understood what that choice was." Her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She almost ignored it, assuming it was another reporter, but something made her answer. "Marley? This is Julia Morrison from the National Science Foundation." The call lasted 30 minutes. By the end, Marley had been invited to participate in a national panel on educational equity and offered a fellowship opportunity that would fund her graduate studies at any university in the country. "Your story has resonated with people who make funding decisions," Julia explained. "They want to support students who've overcome significant barriers to achieve academic excellence." After hanging up, Marley sat in her small apartment and tried to process the magnitude of what was happening. Her moment of public truth-telling had opened doors she hadn't even known existed. But the most significant call came Thursday afternoon from Aunt Lydia. "I saw your speech," Lydia said without preamble. "It was brave and necessary and long overdue. How is everyone handling it?" "Your father hasn't spoken to me since graduation. Your mother called crying, saying you'd embarrass them in front of the whole town." Lydia's voice carried satisfaction. "They still don't understand what they did wrong." "What about Kaya?" "She's staying with friends. The debt situation is worse than you probably know. They used her credit for everything after Ellis lost his job. She's looking at bankruptcy before she's 23. The information sat heavily in Marley's chest. "Is she okay?" "She's stronger than I expected. Angry, finally. She told your parents she was done being their financial backup plan." Lydia paused. "She's been asking about you." "What kind of asking?" "Whether you'd be willing to talk to her. Not for reconciliation, she knows that ship has sailed, but for closure. She has things she wants to say that she couldn't manage at graduation." Marley looked out her window at the campus where she'd built her independence. "I don't know her closure." "No, you don't. But you might owe yourself the chance to hear what she has to say." That evening, Marley sent Kaya a brief text. "If you want to talk, I'll be at Murphy's Tavern Saturday at 7. Come alone." The response came quickly. "Thank you." Saturday evening, Marley arrived at Murphy's Tavern for the first time since graduating. The familiar smell of beer and fried food brought back memories of counting tips and calculating survival. She chose a corner booth and ordered coffee, positioning herself where she could see the entrance, Kaya arrived precisely at 7, looking around nervously before spotting Marley. She approached the table with careful steps, as if afraid sudden movements might spook her sister into leaving. "Thank you for agreeing to this," Kaya said, sliding into the opposite booth. "You have 1 hour." Kaya nodded and folded her hands on the scarred wood table. She looked older than she had at graduation dinner, with shadows under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and difficult decisions. "I left them," Kaya said without preamble. "Moved out, cut contact, everything. I'm staying with friends until I figure out what comes next." "Why?" "Because your speech made me realize I've been complicit in everything they did to you. By taking their money, by staying quiet, by accepting their version of family." Kaya's voice was steadier than Marley had expected. "I was 18 and scared, but that's an explanation, not an excuse." Marley studied her sister's face. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. I know you'll never forgive me, and I understand why. But I needed you to know that I finally see clearly what kind of people they are, what kind of person I was by enabling them. And now you want credit for that realization." "No. I want you to know that your speech didn't just humiliate them, it freed me. It showed me what courage looks like." Kaya met her eyes directly. "I spent 4 years watching you build an incredible life without any help. I spent 4 years taking help I didn't deserve while you earned everything you got." Marley sipped her coffee and waited. "The debt they stuck me with, I'm not paying it. I filed for bankruptcy yesterday and reported the credit fraud to the authorities." Kaya's jaw tightened. "They're going to face consequences for what they did." "Good. I also wanted you to know that I'm applying to graduate programs in social work. I want to help kids who grow up in homes like ours, kids who need someone to believe in them when their families don't." The words surprised Marley more than she cared to admit. "Why social work?" "Because I spent 22 years watching what happens when parents treat children like investments instead of people. I want to be the person who tells kids like us that they're worth more than their family's approval." They sat in silence for several minutes. Around them, the tavern's evening crowd filtered in college students and locals, people living ordinary lives that didn't require the kind of strength Marley had been forced to develop. "I have something else to tell you," Kaya said finally, "about what happened after you left." Marley gestured for her to continue. "They tried to contact you multiple times in the first year. Dad would drink and dial your number, hang up when you didn't answer. Mom wrote letters she never sent." Kaya's voice was quiet. They missed you more than they admitted, but their pride was bigger than their regret. Their pride was always bigger than their love. "Yes, and I should have called you myself, but I was afraid you'd hang up on me." Kaya twisted her hands together. "I was afraid of your anger. You should have been afraid of your cowardice." The words were harsh but true. Kaya absorbed them without flinching. "You're right. I was a coward. I chose comfort over courage, just like you said." She looked up at Marley. "But your speech changed that. Watching you stand up there and tell the truth, it showed me what I should have done years ago." Marley finished her coffee and checked her watch. "Anything else?" "Just this." Kaya reached into her purse and pulled out a small wrapped package. "I bought this for you when you got into Everidge. I never had the courage to send it." She set the package on the table between them. Marley stared at it without touching it. "What is it?" "Open it if you want. Or don't. I just wanted you to have it." Marley picked up the package and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a silver bracelet with a single charm, a small brain, detailed with tiny engravings of neural pathways. "I saw it in a medical supply catalog. I thought it represented what you wanted to study." Kaya's voice was barely audible. "I wanted you to know that at least one person in our family believed you'd succeed." Marley held the bracelet up to the light. noting the craftsmanship and the obvious expense. "Why didn't you send it?" "Because I was 18 and didn't know how to stand up to them. Because I was afraid of making them angry. Because I was selfish and weak, and I convinced myself that staying quiet was the same as staying loyal. It wasn't. I know that now." Marley slipped the bracelet into her pocket without putting it on. "Is that everything?" "Almost." Kaya stood up, leaving money on the table for a drink she hadn't ordered. "I'm proud of you, Marley. I'm proud of who you became without us. I'm proud that you succeeded in spite of everything they put you through. I didn't do it to make you proud. I know. You did it for yourself. That's why it matters." Kaya turned to leave, then paused. "One last thing. When you started that foundation, the Gray Line Project, I donated to it, anonymously. It was money I'd saved from the job I worked summers, before everything fell apart." She walked away without waiting for a response, leaving Marley alone with her coffee and a bracelet that represented years of unexpressed support. Marley stood in the main conference room of the Gray Line Project headquarters, watching Dr. Kroll present research findings to a room full of donors and board members. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the university campus where her journey had begun. The foundation had grown beyond her original vision. What started as a scholarship program for underserved STEM students had expanded into a full research and mentorship organization. They funded 30 undergraduate researchers, operated 3 lab facilities, and provided academic support to students who lacked traditional family backing. Dante managed their technology infrastructure from an office down the hall, while Aunt Lydia coordinated outreach programs from Portland. The board included professors from 6 universities and advocacy leaders who understood the unique challenges facing students without family support. "Our latest cohort includes 12 first-generation college students," Dr. Kroll was saying. "Average GPA of 3.8, with research contributions already being recognized at national conferences." After the presentation, donors mingled with students and researchers. Marley moved through the crowd, listening to conversations about neural mapping techniques and grant applications. This was the world she had built, a place where potential was recognized regardless of pedigree. Her assistant approached with a tablet displaying her afternoon schedule. "You have the TEDx rehearsal at 3, dinner with the Stanford recruitment team at 6. "Thank you, Emma." "Oh, and this came for you." Emma handed her an envelope with no return address. Marley opened it to find a single sheet of paper with a handwritten note. "Marley, I saw the article about your foundation in Scientific American. What you've built is incredible. I'm finishing my MSW at Portland State and starting a job with the state child welfare system next month. Turns out we both found ways to help kids like us. I hope you're happy. I hope you're proud of what you've accomplished." Marley folded the letter and slipped it into her jacket pocket next to the bracelet she now wore every day. She had never responded to Kaya's previous attempts at contact, but something about this note felt different. Final, like an acknowledgement rather than a request. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at the screen and saw a familiar name. "Ellis Quinn. Marley, your mother, and I would like to meet with you. We've been following your success and think it's time we talked. We're proud of what you've accomplished and want to be part of your life again. Please call when you get this." Dad Marley deleted the email without reading it a second time. "Everything okay?" Dante appeared beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Just some people who still don't understand how silence works. Your parents." "Former parents." Marley accepted the coffee and smiled. "Some bridges stay burned." Through the conference room windows, she could see students walking across campus, carrying backpacks full of possibility and determination. Some of them would have families cheering from the sidelines. Others would build their futures alone, the way she had, but none of them would be truly alone. The Gray Line Project made sure of that. Dr. Kroll approached them, her eyes bright with excitement. "I just got off the phone with Harvard Medical School. They want to partner with us on a longitudinal study of academic resilience in first-generation students. That's incredible, Marley said. It gets better. Full funding for 5 years, plus research assistant positions for 20 of our scholars. Dr. Kroll grinned. We're becoming the place where brilliant kids go when no one else believes in them. Marley looked around the room at the students, researchers, and advocates who had become her chosen family. People who saw potential instead of problems. People who invested in futures instead of demanding gratitude for past support that a donor approached with his teenage daughter, introducing her as a prospective applicant to their summer research program. My daughter's interested in neuroscience, he said. She's been following your work since your graduation speech went viral. The girl stepped forward, nervous but determined. I read about your neural pathway research. I have some ideas about applications in trauma therapy. Marley smiled, recognizing something familiar in the girl's intensity. Tell me about them. As they talked, she noticed Dante photographing the moment, another success story in the making, another young person who would build her future on merit rather than birthright. Later that evening, alone in her office, Marley pulled out the bracelet Kaya had given her. She had worn it every day for months, a reminder that family could be chosen as well as given. That sometimes the people who see you most clearly are the ones who have to learn how to look. She opened her laptop and began typing. Kaya, congratulations on finishing your degree and starting your new job. Social work is important work. I'm glad you found a way to turn our childhood into something that helps others. She stared at the message for several minutes before sending it. Her phone rang immediately. Dr. Kroll's name appeared on the screen. I hope you're sitting down, Dr. Kroll said. I just got a call from the MacArthur Foundation. Marley set down her coffee. And you're being considered for a fellowship, the so-called Genius Grant. They want to fund your research and foundation work for the next 5 years. Are you serious? Dead serious. The nomination specifically mentioned your graduation speech and the way you've built support systems for students who lack traditional family backing. Dr. Kroll's voice carried wonder. They called you a transformative voice in educational equity. After hanging up, Marley sat in her office and looked out at the city lights stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere in those lights were students working late shifts to pay for textbooks, kids whose families had written them off as impossible investments, young people who would build their own foundations because no one else would provide them. Tomorrow, she would work to find them, to fund their dreams and recognize their potential, to be the family they deserved rather than the family they had been given. Her computer chimed with a new email. This one was from a high school student in Ohio, Ms. Quinn. I saw your TEDx talk online. My parents think college is a waste of money for someone like me, but your story gives me hope. How do I start building my future alone? Marley smiled and began typing her response. The work continued. The family she had chosen grew larger every day. Outside her window, the university campus glowed with the lights of students pursuing impossible dreams. Some of them would have families cheering from the sidelines. Others would succeed in spite of the families who doubted them. All of them would know that their worth was not determined by who chose to believe in them, but by what they chose to build with their own hands. The building was quiet now except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of traffic. Marley worked until dawn, answering emails from students and reviewing grant applications, building the family she had always needed, one connection at a time. When the sun rose over the campus, she finally closed her laptop and headed home. The bracelet on her wrist caught the morning light, reminding her that sometimes understanding comes too late to heal relationships, but just in time to heal yourself. She had buried the girl who needed her parents' approval and grown into the woman who created her own validation. She had planted herself in soil they said was barren and bloomed anyway. They had buried her, but she had become the seed.